Mr. Tolmoff, please have a seat, and thank you very much for your patience today.
Good evening. Let me start off by saying I am currently in the caseload for family court in New Britain. My guardian ad litem actually was here earlier today, listening into everything. So I will say my story, but the active participants, I am going to omit their names. Their names are in, obviously, my case file. I've been doing this latest. I've been divorced for about 10 years now, and the first 6 years were relatively uneventful. Little missed visitations here and there. Taking them out of the country, to Canada on my weekend and not telling me. There was a contempt motion for that, and I did win that one. But for the most part, relatively uneventful. It's been 4 years and 3 months and about 3 weeks since I've had a real normal visitation with my son. It works out to about 37,000 plus hours that I've had, and of which in the 4 years that I've been doing this in court, I've had about 37 hours of time with my son. So that's about 0.009% of the time that I've been able to spend with my son. The court system is totally broken. My judge that I'm with is totally shot, in my opinion. When I'm talking to the caseworkers, in the clerk's office, and they ask who my judge is, they all roll their eyes. They know what I'm up against. I have had roughly 30 hearing dates or 30 status conferences or 30 changes for continuances and things like that. My judge is on 14 different occasions says he does not care to hear any evidence. He has said that on multiple days, so it's not just a bad day. This is multiple days. I have subpoenaed witnesses, and we never get to call them. I've never had a hearing. I've asked to transfer to the Middletown, family trial docket, and he's denied. He hasn't even denied it. He doesn't deny anything. He doesn't rule on anything because once it's ruled on, I can appeal it, and I am just stuck. The attorney that the guardian that I have is the second guardian. The first attorney for the minor child happened to be my ex-wife's best friend, and I was deceived and lied to and manipulated, and basically got me to where I'm at today. I did file a grievance. It did get to the hearing process. They had a Quinnipiac law student try it for me, I guess, and didn't do it very well, and it was dismissed for lack of finding or whatever it was. She perjured herself 14 times that day. I brought it up to them, and they're like, well, there's nothing we can do about it. I went down to the state police in New Britain at the advice of my lawyer at the time, said, file a complaint that she perjured herself. It's a felony. They did nothing with it because the person that they would turn it over to at some crimes division down in Bridgeport wasn't going to do anything with it. So the system itself, like I said, is flawed. The people in the system are protecting each other, and nothing is getting done. It's been 30-plus court appearances, no trial, no evidence, no rulings, and I just keep paying and paying and paying. We're up to about $53,000, of which $11,000 of it, or more than $11,000, is to the guardian ad litem, and that works out to about $1,500 an hour that I've had to pay for those each hour increments that I have gotten to see my son. We've had a great time when we've been together. Everything is just dragging their feet, dragging it, and when I'm ready just to say I'm done playing this game because I'm done, this game is disgusting, it kills families, it kills me, it kills my wife, it kills our relationship with our kids because we're constantly putting all this energy into fighting this system that nobody does anything with. It's just a round and around circle, and it's disgusting. Every time I'm ready just to sit there and say, you know what, have at it. You guys did this to me, whatever. My son is now 13 years old. They say he doesn't want to see me again. He hates me. Guess what? When he's with me, we have a great time. But when he's away from me, I'm the worst person in the world. It's funny how it flip-flops that quickly. There is no, Mr. Weissmuller here was asking at one point, is there an awkwardness when you guys get back together? There isn't. But still, I'm caught up in this, and there is nothing I can do. I had a lawyer for about a year. It got drained down to about $30,000 where I couldn't afford to pay him and the GAL anymore, so I've had to represent myself. And this just keeps going on and on. I got a judge that refuses to rule on anything, refuses to release the case, and I'm just given a breadcrumb here and there so I don't just throw up my arms and say, you know what, I'm done. My son doesn't deserve to have this. My two little guys don't deserve to have, me and their mom, constantly on edge and stressed out because we're trying to unite this one extra member that's off to the side that is being abused by the way everybody does their job, and it hurts.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
I have a question. What is your guardian ad litem's position?
He believes there is parental alienation. He has, I've paid for Dr. Horowitz, not this Dr. Horowitz, Sidney Horowitz, $3,000. I've never seen anything, but apparently Sidney Horowitz says there's no reason why there shouldn't be visitation with, Ron and his son. I do see, parental alienation. My judge has basically sat there and said, I'm not going to hold anybody, I'm not going to hold her in contempt. There's 11 open contempt motions because anytime she doesn't show up for a doctor's appointment that's court-ordered, I file a contempt motion. That's what I'm supposed to do. The judge goes, I'm not, with her in the room and everything, I'm not going to hold her in contempt. What am I going to do? It's just going to piss her off. Verbatim. In the court transcripts. I'm not going to listen to evidence. Even if I find parental alienation, what do you expect me to do? This is what I am asked by the judge in my case who refuses to rule on anything. So my guardian ad litem, I think, gets it. But because the judge in our case, he's totally ineffective. He has not been able to, there was a request by my guardian ad litem in the very beginning for me not to keep requesting records because I had been shut out from records. So finally, he made a request, please don't request records. So finally I got the judge to lift that. I went into my son's school and I got the, the records, and all of a sudden there's people on the authorized pickup list that I don't recognize. One of the names, my wife starts Googling, who are these people? One of the names turns out to be a known pedophile. Catholic Church, known pedophile. Payments were made by the Catholic Church. The address that this group, this watchdog group has, the last known address for this is the same address that's on my son's pickup, slips and all the. I bring this to my attorney, and he's like, what do you want me, or not my attorney, but the GAL. And I'm like, I have a problem with this. So it took, we were going to file a status conference. He never filed a status conference, so I had to actually file a motion at 200 or 100, and whatever it was, some god-awful amount to file a motion to protect my son from a possible pedophile. And, it got delayed, it got continued. Meanwhile, God knows what's happening. And finally the judge is like, well, there's absolutely no reason why this guy should be around. I'll grant this. I still don't have any documentation. That was, back in October.
Okay, so one of our charges is to look at when people violate, I believe it's subsection 6 of yes. What would your suggestion be? What would you want the judge in your case to do?
For contempt motions and things like
Other than not rule at all.
No, yeah, well, that's the whole thing. I mean, there's, I think, 11 contempt motions that are open, and they're going back 3-4 years. I mean, they're ineffective at this point. Makeup time is all fine and dandy. I firmly believe, I've lost, over 4 years. Do I expect the judge to give me 4 years, the next 4? No, I don't. I've never wanted to yank my son away from his mom or anything like that. But let's start having some quality makeup time. When it's not followed, when it's not delivered, or when she waits there so my son can walk up the stairs and basically tell my wife and my 5-year-old that, oh, the judge says I don't have to come here today. He says he's not going to hold my gun to my head. And then basically walks down 5 minutes later to mom, who's still waiting in the car, to take him away. That's wrong. There should be consequences for it. Throwing her in jail, I don't necessarily agree with that. But I can tell you, money works. Fines work. I don't want the money. I'm not rich. I'm poor. But I don't want her money. What would be nice is the $50,000 that I've had to borrow from my parents actually is coming from the only place they have it, which is college funds for the kids. So it's coming out of my son's college fund that I'm fighting to try and get visitation and a quality of life back with my son. If there are penalties and things like that, have money go back into the college fund. I don't want it, but I want there to be some sort of accountability, and there's not. I mean, the judge is flat out saying, I'm not going to hold you accountable. And then the therapist in the whole case is saying, well, we have to come up with an ironclad agreement. And I laugh at him. I'm like, what's more ironclad than a judge's order? And what's more ironclad than that a judge telling, the person who committed the contempt that he's not going to do anything about it? That's pretty ironclad to me. So that's a problem.
Thank you. Any other questions? You guys can decide who's first amongst the two of you.
Thank you. And thank you for coming. I know that maybe you've been here since this morning?
Yeah, about 8.
Yeah, about 8, okay. So they said that the judge don't want you to request any record.
No, this was the guardian ad litem had requested because some of the contempts, there was a motion to compel, which was granted in Danbury before it got transferred to New Britain. There was a motion to compel that was granted because they're saying my son had PTSD and all that, and I was just requesting the billing, from the therapist who's saying he has PTSD, which I never got. So the GAL at that point had said, can we just hold off on this for now? And that was, almost a year's worth of holding off, and then I finally got the records.
And when you asked your lawyer, and they said, what you want me to do, and you have a lawyer, you're paying your lawyer.
When I was paying the lawyer and the judge was basically like, what do you want me to do about it? The lawyer is flat out told the judge, I would like you to make a ruling. And the judge is like, well, I'm not going to rule on anything. I mean, if you look at some of the transcripts, they're laughable.
Well, and the thing is that we paying for those judges.
Yeah.
They're not working for free.
Oh, no.
And they're supposed to do their job.
Yeah.
And it seems like, and with this issue, they're not doing the job.
Right.
It's like when sometimes you have a case and the judges go by whatever the public defender says. Well, this is what we want, and the judges sometimes instead of making their own decision, they go with whatever the prosecutor, they want. And I would say that when they come to this to the committee, to the judiciary committee for reappointment or for become a new judge, that's one of the things that we ask them. The questions: are you going to be sure? That you're going to be partial? That you're going to be neutral? Can you do this? Can you? And all of them say yes, 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 yes. But then at the time, as soon as they got elected, now it's totally different.
Right.
And we know that it's a problem. We know it's a huge problem,
right.
And it's not only with child custody battles, And my opinion is that there's one thing that the Judiciary Committee, they have to take a look into that, because it doesn't matter how many complaints you put against a judge. At the end of the day, all of them get dismissed.
Right.
And exactly.
Saying, yep.
So you can have 20 reasons to put a complaint. You put a complaint, and then when they come for reappointment, you check on the application, dismiss. So I understand how you guys and the rest of you feel that. Why I'm going to put a complaint? What do I expect from a judge when in reality they're supposed to do their job because they are not working for free?
Correct.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
The therapist that you're seeing, I think down in New Haven, does he accept insurance?
No.
Okay. Do you have insurance?
Yes.
And what does he charge you each visit?
He is charging me $150 an hour, whether I'm there or, my ex-wife doesn't show or anything. Basically, if there's a time slot, I'm expected. And he actually went ballistic once because the slot that my wife made an appointment for, I expected her to pay for it because I wasn't there. I didn't make the slot. It wasn't ordered or anything like that. And he's like, threw his arms up and was disgusted that I would even think that, I wouldn't be the one responsible to pay for my ex-wife's session. So I was kind of thrown off by that.
And what are they calling this type of therapy?
They were saying it was reunification therapy, but they were saying, viability, they want to see how resilient he is. And then, when my, 11-year-old at the time is saying, how he's not resilient, I'm wondering who coached him because it's not a vocabulary word he would typically know, and talked about shattering into a million pieces. It was almost like he was coached. And that's where I think some of these people, the professionals, see right through it. And they've sat there and said, but when it comes down to, pay me, it's
Right.
just, I'm not going to accept insurance. This is court ordered, even if it is, because he has PTSD, which apparently they told me he's had for years, even though they've never shown me one bill that he's actually had even a therapy session. I thought PTSD would be something that would be covered.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, the court could sit there and say, what, if you guys have issues, go on Saturdays and have some therapy. I'd be all over it. But they were against everything unless I was paying out of pocket.
Okay, so this particular therapist, I know who he is, and I won't say his name, but he played a part in a case that I'm aware of a few years back, and he accepted insurance. And I guess he caught on real quick that you can make money, and actually $150 is not that expensive for them because it actually goes up to $375 if you're dealing with someone else. The other thing I wanted to ask you was I did read some of the transcripts that you had, and I was appalled by the fact that your judge told you in front of your son that if he doesn't want to go with you, he doesn't have to. And he also said that to your son in open court on the transcripts, is this correct? I'd like to know if this is correct, that he would enjoy taking your son out for a ball game.
Yeah, basketball.
A basketball game. And maybe the therapist
Yeah,
who's getting the 150 can join, but yet you can't see your son.
Correct.
And first of all, isn't that unethical for a judge? I read it with my own two eyes, and I had to read it over. For a judge to tell your son, who's in this turmoil, he's on the witness stand. First of all, I can't believe he wasn't even in the. He was there. Well, not witness stand.
Your son was brought into the courtroom?
Yes.
Without me there.
And allowed to stay by the judge?
Yeah.
And the judge.
And invited to a basketball game.
The judge. I'm going to forward you the transcript. The judge. I thought you were there. I'm sorry. So you weren't there.
And and the GAL was the GAL there?
Yeah, the GL was there.
And the GAL didn't.
Like I said, the GL's a nice guy, but totally ineffective with this judge.
Oh, so it's the judge. Is that okay? All right. You didn't say it. I know.
Okay. So I'm reading this, and I just could not believe that a judge. What does he want to act as a parent? And I bet you. If that actually, did that actually take place? Because that was last year.
It did not. I did, at one point, a couple court dates later, I guess I went back at the judge, and I said I did not appreciate you inviting, my son to a basketball game, and I kind of really teetered the line. I mean, I was, respectful about it, but then the judge, he backpedaled at that point.
Okay.
I'm trying to do you favors.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
For a judge that we pay to tell, you're not even seeing your son, and he's telling your son that he would like to go with the therapist and himself and take your son to a basketball game when you aren't even seeing your kid is disgusting.
Right. Well, he also said that, him and my son should trade phone numbers so they could talk about basketball.
And he said it more than once in the transcript. At the end, okay, and I won't say your son's name, I'm looking forward to seeing you for that game. how is that in the best interest to even say that? It's so inappropriate, and he's had no intentions of taking this kid. And here you have a little kid who, I don't know, was he 11 or 10 at the time? 12, that he's going to take him to a game. Isn't that setting your son up for like disappointment?
Absolutely.
It's disgusting. And I will forward, with your permission, to everybody those transcripts.
And I finally got to say something about it, because the review, the grievance portion of it, it doesn't work. It's ineffective, and finally it's on a transcript. Again, I didn't say the judge's name, but everybody will know who it is. There's no doubt about that. But again, no, it's not appropriate the way things are handled.
Well, we're happy to have given you the opportunity to do that.
Thank you.
I think we're all surprised, to put it mildly. Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Gonzalez.
Thank you, Jennifer, to bring that up, because I remember a couple of years ago, we have a judge that came for reappointment, and we have a couple of judges that criticized that judge because she was trying to be nice to a young kid that he was in juvenile court, and they went after her so bad. They didn't want to appoint her because they were saying she crossed the line. She crossed the line. But this here is one that is willing to take your son to a baseball game, but it is okay. I think that we have to understand how the system works. It's good for you, but it's not good for me. Thanks.
Thank you.
And you're the biological parent.
I am.
So you can have a stranger spend time with your kid in a robe,
He wears a robe.
but you can't spend time with your kid.
The robe told me no.
Thank you so much, and
Thank
thank you for waiting all day. I really appreciate your patience. Sergeant?